Welcome back to the final week of our series, Awaken, where we're asking God to open our eyes to the ways that God is moving and God's mission is moving, as Tom mentioned last week, all over the world. And this week, we have something super special for you to experience. This fall, we've spent a ton of time talking about unstoppable good, and many of us have made commitments toward this vision, and I have too. I'm Kirsten, and you may remember me by my line dancing obsession or the one time I tried to pour Coke into a plant, but I hope that you'll remember me as an example of how God wants us to serve right where we are. And for me, that looks like working for the Fellowship of Christian Athletes in Harford County. I have the pleasure of coaching volleyball, being a character coach as well, and that looks like being able to present devotionals and do team building activities with a bunch of high schoolers and middle schoolers. And it's something that the Lord's been calling me to, and I'm so grateful that I've been able to step into that role. Many of you have heard the word or the term kingdom worker before. The trap that we can fall into is thinking that kingdom work is just for people to go somewhere and do something really cool that's way better than anything we could be doing here. But have you ever thought about what kingdom work could look like right here, where we are in Harford County? And maybe you think, how could I ever do that? Or everyone at my school seems to be doing fine. They might not need Jesus or an extra source of hope. Or maybe your thought is, this takes too much time. And my friends look like they're having a good enough time anyway, and I just want to fit in. There's this guy in the Bible named Ezekiel, and he's a prophet. And that means that God tells him things and he gets to tell the people about it. Sometimes the people respond really well, and it's positive, and God's happy with them, and they flourish. And sometimes the people don't listen, and everything literally goes to ruin. Ezekiel and God, in this story, are in a valley. And this valley has two big hills on the sides of it. And there's something in this valley. In this valley, there's bones, dry bones. Kind of creepy, right? But this is a vision, of course, and like a metaphor for an illustration of something. This was a wasteland. There was nothing alive in it. And there once may have been life, maybe happiness and joy, but now it's empty. Maybe that's how you feel when you head into school, to practice, to rehearsal, or home with your family. Like you're standing in a valley of dead, dry bones. Like there's fighting around you and there's negativity, and you're just kind of stuck in the middle and you're looking around going, there's nothing here for me. This is just yucky and kind of weird and gross. Put yourself in Ezekiel's shoes. You and God standing, looking down into a valley of dead, dry bones. It's negative. There's no hope. There's no joy. How can life happen there? It's dead. There's nothing good that could possibly come out of it. And that might be what Ezekiel was thinking. Okay, God, you brought me here. I'm here. Now what? There's this valley in front of me where there's nothing good, where there's no life. There's nothing fruitful or good that could come out of this. In verse 3, God asks Ezekiel, "Son of man, can these bones live?" And that's what we're all wondering. We're looking at this negative piece of life or place that we're in, and we're like, how can this come to life? Is it even possible? There's an element of uncertainty here, and I think we can all relate to it. There's somewhere in your life where God's asking you this same question. It's uncomfortable, and sometimes it's uncertain. But listen to what Ezekiel says. It's so powerful. He says, "Sovereign Lord, only you know." So simple and so powerful. When you look at a situation and you see darkness and yuckiness and no hope and those hypothetical dry bones, are you able to say, "God, only you know," like Ezekiel? It takes trust in Jesus, and it takes trust in the things that he's gonna do. If you know anything about God, you know that he does some really cool things when we choose to trust in him. So we're going to continue with the story. And God says to Ezekiel, prophesy to these bones and say to them, dry bones, hear the word of the Lord. This is what the sovereign Lord says to these bones. I will make breath enter you and you will come to life. I will attach tendons to you and make flesh come upon you and cover you with skin. I will put breath in you and you will come to life. Then you will know that I am the Lord. And Ezekiel says back, he says, so I prophesied as I was commanded. As I was prophesying, there was a noise, a rattling sound, and the bones came together, bone to bone. I looked, and tendons and flesh appeared on them, and skin covered them, but there was no breath in them. Then he said to me, prophesy to the breath, prophesy, Son of Man, and say to it, this is what the sovereign Lord says. Come, breathe from the four winds and breathe into these slain that they may live. So I prophesied as he commanded me, and breath entered them. They came to life and stood up on their feet, a vast army. God raised up an entire army out of dead, dry bones. What? That's crazy. This is what our God can do with the situation that you are facing, that you're on the fence about trusting him with. He can take a completely dead situation and bring it to life, put life into it, put positivity into it, bring joy, bring hope through the power of his words. After the Lord awakened my spirit and gave me that nudge to do kingdom work with FCA, I looked for someone who worked for FCA already that I could look up to and seek guidance from. And suddenly those bones in that valley were getting built up a little. It's not a big thing. It's actually pretty small in the grand scheme of things. It all started with an awakening of my relationship with the Lord and my willingness to trust him with what was in front of me. And when I was able to say, God, I know this is dead, but I trust that your word and your power can bring life. Where is your valley of dry bones in your life? Is it that group of friends that parties and then talks bad about each other and uses the same cheat sheet for 6 different classes? How could life come from that? Is it your family who just can't stop fighting? How can life come from that? Is it your sports team where your coach is mean and negative? It brings everybody down. How could life come from that? Or maybe it's just your own brain. Sometimes it fights against you. How could life come from that? Whatever your valley of dry bones is, God, hypothetically, has you out in the valley overlooking the dry bones, and he's asking you, can these bones live? As people who follow Jesus, we've been selected as kingdom workers. We're tasked with the duty of trusting God and then allowing him to awaken us to do the good works that he already has ready for us to do. Some days, I don't feel like it though. Some days I don't want to walk into school and be the Christian girl and know that people are thinking about me differently or say different things to me or won't invite me to parties. Sometimes I don't want to be that girl. Sometimes it's hard to read my Bible because I know that the verses that I'm going to read are going to challenge me to change something in my heart that I think is good for me, but maybe is not God's best for me. And sometimes when I'm surrounded with a group of people, I just want to be normal. I just want to fit in. But then I remember the hope that I have in Jesus. I remember all of the blessings and good things that he has brought into my life through Jesus. I remember how hopeless and helpless I was without the hope of Jesus and the Christian community that I found. There are people just like you that need the hope of Jesus right here. Right at your school, right on your team, right in the cast of your play, right in your science class. You don't have to get on an airplane and go anywhere to find people who need the hope of Jesus. Jesus tells his disciples in Matthew, The harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Ask the Lord of the harvest, therefore, to send out workers into his harvest field. That field is right here in Harford County. It's Bel Air High School. It's Edgewood Middle School. It's Joppatown. It's Falston. It's wherever you find yourself. And my question for you, and God's question for you, is will you join me in the work of trusting and following Jesus right where you are?
Hi, we're Wendy and Pat Wyant. We're here to talk about the Sharing Table, which is a nonprofit that serves meals and provides groceries to folks in need in Edgewood and surrounding communities. I really do feel like an internal, I have to go serve. I don't know how else to explain it. I mean, it just really is like, I can't imagine there being a time where I ever won't do that. I've always been involved in like local missions. In God's way, he reached through my email and said, hey, we need somebody to take over the presidency of this organization that you've helped before. And I was like, well, I think I could do it. When I started as president of the Sharing Table, that was whole next level stuff that I thought I would never be doing ever. It took an introverted person and really took me way out of my comfort zone and outside of my box. And I literally, it's only for God that this would be happening, because otherwise I would have been like, I'm good. The Sharing Table itself is 29 years old. We'll celebrate our 30th anniversary next year. It actually started with two women who saw a need in their community, saw something else like that in Aberdeen, and said, why can't they have something like that here? And then, why can't somebody do that? And then they decided they were the somebody that was going to do that.
We have groups that come in every Saturday. We serve a hot meal, and we also give out bags of groceries.
For me, the thing that keeps me coming back, I guess, is you get to know these families, you get to know their stories, and, they're having trials and tribulations just like the rest of us, but they're also sitting in a food line because they don't have enough resources to have enough food for the week. The helping them is really fulfilling for me, but that's not really why I do it. I do it because we're called to do it.
We had a group that got their wires crossed and didn't show up. So that means you're missing a lot of volunteers, because the group not only brings the hot meal, but they also have volunteers. So we're missing a good 10 volunteers. With that being said, we had, 5 or 6 people just out of the blue showed up. You look back and I don't know how we did it. We're able to get up.
There's so many stories like that, and I know how God worked it out. Well, I think a good first step would be to maybe just visit the Sharing Table, or bring up an adult with you and come over and just kind of visit the facility and see what we do, and that it's not so scary, and you're really just handing out hot meals to people and putting bags of groceries in their car. It's not that scary. And maybe you could see how you think, that would fit for you. Some people want to go travel to Mexico, and some people want to do something here because they want to do something in the community. What I love about younger folks coming is just showing them and teaching them about serving and why we serve, and showing them, how you can be the hands and feet of God here is awesome.